and we're very excited to bring this program to you. I'm going to just give a brief set of comments and then throw it over to Professor Fortson to take us through the substance of the program. Suffice it to say, we're very excited about this program and its content and what we think the participants will gain from it. Before we start, though, I wanted to give a little bit of context, just really a personal point of privilege, so that you understand. So hopefully it gives you some context into why we work together to put this program together. I'm originally from Nigeria and went to the University of Nigeria, Enugu campus for law school. And when I finished, after being called to the bar in Nigeria, I came over to the States to get a JD and an MBA from Georgetown University. I then worked on Wall Street for a number of years at a law firm called Sullivan and Cromwell, after which I moved in-house with a private equity portfolio company in the education management sphere. I spent a number of years as general counsel building up their compliance architecture, their corporate governance systems, and then I moved into operating roles as a C-suite executive with the company before eventually coming back to the general counsel role. And in the general counsel role, I had to deal with a massive data breach that we were hacked through a phishing mechanism by a anonymous, probably somewhere in Eastern Europe, that demanded crypto as a ransom for unlocking our systems. And so I had to do a lot of work with the regulatory authorities, with IT professionals, with other stakeholders, in order to figure out a way to remediate and regain control of our data. So the point I'm trying to make, there are 2 points I'm trying to make. The first point is that as we take you through this program, rest assured that we know that of which we speak, that we have been there, we have done that in terms of taking you through cybersecurity and data privacy and the things that you need to do in an intercollaborative way to remediate what is a growing problem. The second, it has to do with the global nature of the problem, particularly in the wake of COVID-19. We see that the global workforce is globally distributed. People are working remotely from all over the world. And that just takes the threat assessment to a level 5, to a 5 out of 5 in terms of the potential for incursions and what that means for companies. And so it's very, very important, we believe, that we learn these things. And as we go through, as Professor Forson takes you through the course, we'll also point out what we think are the opportunities, which is why we're here. We think that having scanned the landscape, we believe that this particular course, while there may be other data privacy courses out there, having done the survey, I'm quite confident that this is a truly global program, insofar as we're taking you not just through GDPR in Europe, we're not just taking you through privacy regulations in the United States, but we're also focusing on Africa, which in terms of IT penetration, in terms of other tech developments, is one of the fastest growing areas in the world. And that's a particular point of pride for us. And we also think a distinguishing factor in our program that will redound to your benefit. So happy to speak more about that, but rather than hearing me drone on at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Professor Fortson. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Charlie Fortson, and I am a professor here at the Southern University Law Center. Just to give you a little bit of an overview of the Law Center, we were established in 1947. We are located in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The mission of our center is, and the tradition of the Law Center is to provide access and opportunity to a diverse group of students from underrepresented racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups to obtain a high quality legal education with training in both civil and common law. Additionally, our mission is to train a cadre of lawyers equipped with the skills necessary for the practice of law and for positions of leadership in society. So, all of that to say, we are a diverse law center, and we are a center that where we pride ourselves in offering opportunities to diverse students. Next, please. So the purpose of this program is, as Jude has mentioned, it is really to give you a certification for sure in data privacy and cybersecurity, but it is also to help you, be proficient and in being able to use this program as leverage to gain access maybe into a career that you are not a part of right now, or to advance your career goals. So upon completion of this program, you will have gained valuable competencies in data privacy. You will have earned a qualification that validates your experience, and you'll be able to develop and implement privacy solutions for the organization or business. Next. So just to give you an overview of the program, it is an 8-week program. So in week 1, we'll start off with an introduction to cybersecurity and data privacy. So we will introduce and define privacy, and we'll also introduce and define cybersecurity. And you may think, okay, you know what that means, but I can assure you, based on research and with the United Nations, no one has one solid definition of what cybersecurity is, which is why it presents a challenge in so many different countries. But we will attempt to define cybersecurity and give you a global perspective of how other countries look at it, as well as understanding data privacy. In week 2, we will go a little bit deeper into the overview of data privacy laws in Africa. So we will incorporate various case studies. You will understand some of the laws that establish, compliance and the enforcement framework in Nigeria and around. And we'll also do a comparison of what these laws look like in the various countries, such as Kenya, Rwanda, and Ghana. In week 3, we'll talk about the state of cybersecurity in Africa. So again, more case studies, we'll have rich discussions, we'll have opportunities to kind of compare 8 different organizations to cybersecurity. And then we'll spend about 2 weeks or so talking about cybersecurity in Africa. But then we'll come in week 4 and we'll talk about, privacy rights and cybersecurity in the US. So we'll look at the sources of law for the United States, understand, how the Constitution affords you a right to bring a claim in court in the event of a data breach. We'll look at other constitutional foundations for privacy law. And then when you get to week 5, we'll look at US data protection and privacy law. So we'll look at more specifically some of those different, acts, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, Federal Trade Commission Act, Privacy Act. We'll look at the governing body, who is regulating all of these different acts. We'll learn whether or not there's a uniform federal law that, all states will abide by, or we'll look at the differences or the fact that there isn't a federal law. And we'll also look at some privacy torts. So we won't be too legal, but it's important that you understand these different laws because, of course, these laws will, help to provide guidance for you as, practitioners in this field, what you can and can't do, how you should advise, in a particular role, whether you're in an IT role, whether you are, in a legal profession, it doesn't matter. It's important that you understand the parameters around the privacy laws. Then when we get to week 6, we'll look at GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. So we know that, this the GDPR rolled out in May of 2018. And we know that many countries, any country that's doing business with EU citizens, we know that they must abide by the GDPR. But what exactly is it? We'll look at the scope of it, we'll define it, we'll understand the rights under it. And then when we get to week 7, we'll look at, even further the impact of GDPR around the world. What are those implications for data protection and privacy protection in Africa? What are those protections, those implications in the US and in China? What are a lot of your major players that are doing business in the EU, how are they being impacted by GDPR? And then when we get to the final week, this wrap up in Capstone, and that's where Professor Biondo will kind of come in and kind of, tie all of those weeks together and provide you with a wrap up activity. And that activity may vary. Beyond Professor Biondo, do you want to discuss that now, or you want to just leave it at a high overview?
Actually, I'm not currently prepared to do that. So let's not hold everybody up.
Sure. So just know that, there's a wrap up in Capstone around, tying all of those weeks together. And it'll be, and what you'll walk away with is a deliverable that you can present to a prospective employer or a manager to just kind of be able to showcase what you've learned and the work that you've put in. And, just as a real tangible product to further validate and verify the work that you've done and learned throughout these 8 weeks. Next slide. So at this time, I will turn it over to Crystal to talk about the certificate program details.
Crystal, are you on?
Here, just having some some issues with my phone. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so these are the certificate program details, and I think, well, I'm sure we'll have some questions on this later. So the cost of attendance is $995, and it was originally, I think it was $2,500, and we've discounted it by 60%.
That's correct.
So that's why yes, okay. So that's how we came up with 995. To register, you would go to sulc.edu/data privacy. I think some of you have already been to the various microsites, and that's how you got here to register today. Now, our registration deadline is December 18th, so it's imperative that you register as soon as possible so that we can make sure we get you access to the materials and all that when the course starts. Okay, next slide. Do I have any questions on this right now? Oh, okay. Any questions? Does anybody want to raise their hands? Let's see if anybody's asking any questions. Nope. Okay, so that is, I don't know if we want to go into details about how they access materials and all that kind of stuff. Is that something we want to talk about now or later?
We can talk about it later, but I can say that, once registration is complete, we will share everything that you need to access it. So this is more or less an asynchronous course, meaning that you will do a lot of the material, you will cover a lot of the content on your own, but we will maintain office hours for questions, and there will be guided lectures. So we will give you access to the platform where all of the material will be hosted. And we will also, all of your assignments that you will work on, case studies and et cetera, all of that will also be on the platform. So once you complete registration, you'll essentially receive an email that will introduce you to the system. It will introduce you to the course. It will walk you through. It will give you, who you need to contact if you have IT questions or connectivity issues. It will give you, the professor's contact information. If you have further questions, it will provide you with a schedule of what is due each week. It will show you, how to access those materials. So you will get a very thorough welcome and introductory email that will walk you through everything you need in order to access the materials that you need.
So far, we have 3 questions. The first one is, can you use the certificate to seek employment in the U.S.?
So this is Jude, let me take that first question. So the certificate in and of itself, of course, is not going to be able to guarantee you employment in the US. We just have to say that at the outset. However, having said that, and I assume that whoever is asking the question is outside of the US and is looking to avail themselves of either remote working opportunities or an opportunity to relocate to the US or maybe to Canada from maybe somewhere in sub-Saharan Africa. And for those purposes, that was one of the animating objectives, principles in the design of this course, because of course the certification is coming from Southern University, which is a US institution, fully accredited, in very good standing. I know that one of the issues in terms of being able to seek gainful employment in the US or in Canada or elsewhere outside of sub-Saharan Africa, applicants have been hamstrung in obtaining said employment because their educational qualifications come from universities with which potential employers are not familiar. And that is, in fact, what we believe is a significant differentiator about our program. So can we guarantee you that you'll be able to get employment in the US or elsewhere outside of Africa with this certificate? I have to say, no, we cannot guarantee that. Do we think that, all else equal, it is going to give you a leg up in your employment search? My strong sense is the answer to that is yes.
And I'll also add that, just keeping in mind what the data shows and what we are seeing is that there is still a shortage of, qualified individuals to work in the space of data privacy and cybersecurity in all roles associated with those fields. So, this is definitely an area that is that has a growing demand, and it has a current, strong demand for professionals in this area. So, again, as Jude would say, no, there are no guarantees, but it is definitely, an area where there is a high demand for this type of knowledge base.
Okay. The next question is, what are the various legal careers open for attorneys in cybersecurity and data privacy?
Charlie, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So there's so many. So you could work as, counsel, you could work as counsel in, information security or data privacy, general counsel, there could be things like negotiating contracts when it comes to, who would be responsible. The biggest thing in the area of data privacy as a general counsel is, who's going to be responsible in the event of a data breach. That's the big one. And if you are in an organization, excuse me, where you're transferring data, you're either, you're housing it or you're sending it off to another organization that would house that data, then there's always this huge question of, who's going to be responsible and at what point are you responsible? Who handles the notifications in the event of a breach? Who's the party that would be liable for any lawsuit in the case of a breach? So as general counsel, that's one particular area. And then, you could be a contract specialist, if you will. So you are that person who's constantly, negotiating those contracts, making sure that, and this would be in various areas. So you've got financial, you've got healthcare, you've got, I'm missing another one. I know financial and healthcare are the primary two. You could think about if you're working in a law firm, a lot of the times it could be something around understanding, if you are a firm, think about who your clients are and the fact that you are privy to a lot of their their clients' proprietary information. And so even as working in a law firm, making sure that your data privacy is in place there, as well as any cybersecurity measures are in place there. It could be something, litigation. There's so many different areas. I would just think anywhere where there's data, that there's an opportunity as an attorney to work with, something around contracting, protecting your organization from liability in the event of a breach. And I know that there's others, IP, intellectual property. There were, breaches to law firms that work with, clients that do patent work. That breach actually came from China, several breaches from China in that aspect. Any type of, ransomware attack, like Jude mentioned, where, there's a breach in your system. Some attorney has to be communicating with, your C-suite, your senior level managers to, kind of tell how are we going to implement this plan? What do we need to do? There's so many areas, private sector, working in a law firm, public sector. DC is huge for a lot of, data privacy, cybersecurity issues. Working with e-commerce clients. It just goes on and on. Working with e-commerce clients, you're collecting data, you're having clients from, from Europe, from other places. There are rules in place when you are collecting data from people under the age of 18, rules in place. You have to have certain policies on a website. You could be an advisor in that capacity. Like it's endless, honestly. If I thought about it, I'd probably come up with 10 other ways, but it's a lot. And Jude and Damien, feel free to jump in there.
Jude, if you don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and hop on in. And first off, I actually owe my colleagues an apology. And everybody listening to the presentation. We are in the middle of that interregnum between finals and midterms that just ended here at Southern University. I actually thought we were still in the middle of a mock presentation here. So I did not mean to skip over my responsibilities earlier. I will get to that momentarily. But to address Charlie's comments, there is a very big need inside of companies to address how to protect their data. You'd be surprised how many companies just don't know how to do it. On the large end in the corporate world, there are, particularly for publicly traded companies, there is a position required called the Chief Information Officer. Once you get out of the large corporate world, it's unclear who those responsibilities fall onto. And that responsibility, that's supposed by law, supposed to be the point person for seeing to it that the information inside of a company is preserved and protected. And that's through the technological means, that's through personnel means, that's through just an awareness of how this, whatever the organization does, being aware of the data that comes in, the data that goes out, and the mechanisms by which all that's protected. Once, and as we've seen here during the pandemic in the United States, a lot of the smaller companies and a lot of the mid-sized companies, particularly if they're not publicly traded, are really unaware and have been exploited and have been vulnerable. We've seen an uptick during the pandemic in particularly phishing attacks and I forget the term here. It's a hijacking of the data, essentially. Foreign operatives in particular, the ransomware attacks. Thank you. Been locking up companies' data and expecting rather substantial payments in untraceable Bitcoin in order to get that data open. And ultimately, this certificate is designed to give you the tools to get into those. I don't think it's going to give you everything you need to be a chief information officer at a Fortune 500. We're not designed for that yet, right? Give us a couple of years. But to get into the smaller and mid-sized companies and actually take on some of at least the supportive roles and eventually grow into a leadership role in that space. So we're looking for people with IT backgrounds, people in industries that have specific data needs, such as healthcare, such as education, such as the financial world, where there are unique challenges because of the nature of the data collected there. And yes, this is an area in which law, technology, and specific industrial disciplines all come together and merge, which is why it's so challenging. It's why it's so difficult. Unfortunately, here in the States, at least, we've not yet evolved as a governmental body or a regulatory practice to have one specific Department of Information Management. My personal view is we need to get there within the next decade or two at the most. If not, we're going to continue to have the sorts of problems we had here. So unfortunately, data privacy pulls in regulatory frameworks and rules and laws from different sectors of the federal government here in the United States. And believe it or not, the states kick in from time to time. We've seen disclosure requirements coming through like 2007, 2008, 2009, where the state started putting liability on small companies to make sure everybody got notified. So we've got federal and state issues, and we've got different administrative roles and different administrative bodies regulating it at the federal level. And it gets really confusing for people who have not actually spent the time and focused on looking at the laws and the regulations that have emerged. And so this program is designed to give people an opportunity to look at all of that in one coherent view, and then take that into their companies and their different roles respectively. Let me back up and again apologize mostly to my colleagues. I thought we were still on the practice routine for this presentation. My apologies. Here's my current thinking about the final Capstone project. Clearly, it's an academic program. If you want to write a paper and go do some research, that's acceptable. I've been more than happy to assist you in doing that. We're also thinking about possible case studies. The Harvard Business Review has a number of them. There are a number of other large data privacy breaches that have taken place here in the United States and abroad, an in-depth study of what went wrong and how to fix them. If anybody is in the IT or software development space and you have an idea for an app, I happen to be a patent attorney with a computer science background. Let's design an app. I'd be more than happy to partner up with you in that. And then ultimately, the final thing is anything, because this is still a relatively new program, if anybody has specific unique needs to fulfill in a capstone project type of environment, we're all ears. So, to the extent that you've got a role where you see how a data privacy, data protection, cybersecurity thing might be of immediate use to your employer, come talk to me and we'll set up a capstone early on and we'll guide you in that direction from week one if you've got that already going on. So again, apologies. I thought we were still in practice mode. There's my current thoughts. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Professor Biondo. Very, very, very helpful. Jasmine, if you don't mind, I'm going to skip ahead to one of the questions because I think it tacks on to the question that was just answered, and hopefully what was provided gave you a snapshot of the myriad of ways in which you as someone with legal training can participate in this sector. But one of the questions that I saw was, do you have to be a lawyer to do this? And the answer to that is a resounding no. And we want to make two things clear. The first is this program is designed for everybody. Wherever you are geographically in the world, if you are in the US, if you are in Europe, if you are in Asia, if you are in Africa, this program is for you. That's the first point. The second point is We are vocation agnostic. You don't have to be a lawyer. If you're considering law school, I think we can recommend a very good law school for you, namely Southern University Law Center. And by the way, my own personal belief is that people who have a background in IT and law are going to own the next 20, 50 years. But that said, if you are just coming at it from the perspective of someone who is an IT professional, this course is also for you. If you're coming at it from the perspective of somebody who is a C-suite or aspiring C-suite executive, and you're just looking at it from the perspective of what are the business risks that need to keep me up at night? That I need to figure out with the technical experts how to remediate. This course is for you. It is designed to be interdisciplinary because when you get out into the real world, as we have found, your instructors will have found, you cannot segment or silo the response to a data breach. You need to work collaboratively across functions. IT needs to be talking to legal. Legal needs to be talking to compliance. Compliance needs to be talking to C-suite, et cetera, et cetera. And so we are designing this program so that, if you take the analogy of the 5 blind men and the elephant, you're not each touching a separate part of the beast and you can't describe it. No, you're working in a very interconnected, collaborative way, maybe even across jurisdictions and time zones to solve the problem. That is where business is being conducted. That is the way business is being conducted. And that is what this program is training you to do.
Okay. The next question is, does the cost of the program need to be paid by December 18th?
Crystal, will you take that one as our Chief Operations Officer and money bag lady?
So initially, we were saying yes, that it had to. However, now, because we recognize that it's towards the end of the year, and some people are having, financial challenges based on what's going on in the world, we said that we would take, what was the minimum we said? I think 400 to indicate interest, right? And then the rest just needs to be paid before you get your certificate. So that is how we have broken it down. So it does not need to be paid all at once when you register. But 400 we do need to see that in order to get you your materials to start the course.
Thank you, Crystal.
The next one is, once we obtain a certificate, will we have to take any certification tests to work in the field, such as CIPP/US?
That's a good question, and I'll answer it based on my own experience, but then I'll also turn it over to Professor Fortson, who actually has, if I recall, CIPP designation. I've been down this path before in designing another course with another institution where we asked this kind of question. Is it enough to get the certification from the school, or do you need the industry certification like the CIPP? And what we did then was we designed the program so that it would be eligible to confer, to meet the requirements to sit for the certification exam. And here I'm talking about a program in regulatory compliance where the industry designation was CCEP. We found, to our amazement, that a number of people, well, a majority of people who were taking the course would just get our certification and go off and get jobs in the field. And when we asked the people who graduated from the program why they hadn't gone on to get the CCEP designation, they all said, not they all said, but most of them said that they had been able to get jobs just with the certification from the school, given the acute need for people who had the requisite training. And that at some point they intended to go get the CCEP designation, but for purposes of getting the job, that had not been an impediment. Now, we are lawyers on this call, and this is where I make the customary caveat that past results are not predictive of what may happen in the future. And so it may be that for a particular job or for a particular sector, they are really looking for that industry certification. But if that's the case, that is the case. But I think that given the design, given the pedagogy of this course, you will be people coming out and demonstrating a proficiency in what is being taught in the course will be in a very good competitive posture with respect to jobs in this industry. You know, Professor Fortson, I don't know if there are any other things that you'd like to add.
Sure, a few things. So interestingly enough, one of the questions was, did you have to be a lawyer, or is this class or certification geared towards lawyers? But I will be very honest with you, when you are sitting for that exam, what it requires of you is to know the laws. So it is not an exam for lawyers, but all of the content is around knowing the laws throughout, for whatever. So for the CIPP, they've got different designations. They've got one for Europe. They've got, of course, the US. They've got Asia. And you are required to know the laws for whatever jurisdiction or designation is after that CIPP. So for me, I did the CIPP US, and all it requires is that I know all of the laws, all of the different, industries or sectors that are affected by data privacy rules, and I had to know the law. But interestingly enough, and this may even validate Jude's point, I did not have that certification when I got my first job working in data privacy. What I had under my belt was one article that I published in I think it was the National Law Review Journal, just talking about cybersecurity. And that article was enough for me to get a job as a privacy professional negotiating contracts for a company that houses data for different hospitals. I did go and get my certification, and it has done well for me, but I had already demonstrated an interest in it, just from the article that I had written. So what am I really saying? I think that if you have a demonstrated interest, and that would be, manifested by the fact that you've acquired a certificate, and then, I think that would, at least show a prospective employer, okay, here's someone who's interested in it. Even further, in an interview, being able to have the conversations, which is why the Capstone Project is so important, because that is you tying it all together to show some work product that you have created that would be able to speak to your knowledge level of the data privacy laws, understanding, the connection between data privacy and cybersecurity, and just being able to have the intelligent conversation about it. So I think all of those things play together. And then if you wanted to even further, get that the CIPP certification, then you could also do that. So the question is, does this class prepare you for that? Absolutely, because a lot of what we are providing for you are a knowledge of the different laws that exist in the various regions, the US, Africa, and Europe. So understanding what these laws are will, lay a very strong foundation for what you need in order to sit for a CIPP exam.
The next question, I think Crystal was typing, but just to have it on the record for the recording, can I access the certificate program from Nigeria?
Yes, you can. It's asynchronous. It's designed specifically, again, with the needs of the global workforce in mind. So you can access it from wherever in the world you happen to be.
The next question says the registration form requests a personal statement. What should that statement address?
Okay, I'll take that. Can you all hear me? Okay. The personal statement, we just want to, this course is designed for people who are already working, mid-career professionals. And so we wanted to know and have an idea what your background is. So why are you applying? What do you hope to get out of it? What are your goals? The reasons behind your interest in this course. Those are the things that we want to see in your personal statement.
And I think that that ties, very nicely to what Professor Biondo stated, which is, understanding what you are hoping to do with this certification will kind of help determine what's a good capstone project for you.
Exactly.
And the last question that we have is, what is the flexibility of the program for full-time and working professionals, time commitment and schedule?
Do you want me to take that?
Sure. And then I can weigh in, Professor.
Okay, so, okay. As Charlie has mentioned, the course is asynchronous. So what that I'm at a specific place, you take it at your own time. So this was, we talked long and hard about this and made sure that we wanted to make sure that people who are working and have families and commitments, that they can do this and it be flexible for them. So that is why we've actually created a program that as long as I think it's a week that they have to complete their work and do their readings and submit, but you will be very flexible with this program.
Sure. And just to kind of add on, just to be clear, so even it's an 8-week program, and asynchronous just simply means that you can work at your own pace. You don't have to, sign on, at 5 p.m. every day, so it means that you can work at your own pace. A lot of the material is provided for, or all of the material is provided for you to work at your own pace. However, this is not intended to be a program where you have 8 weeks to complete 8 weeks worth of material. Each week we do have hard stops. So week 1, there's content and there are objectives that you should accomplish, because of course each one is more or less building on each other, and you need to complete week 1 before going on to week 2, et cetera, et cetera. So, you do work at your own pace, but you work at your own pace inside of 1 week segments, right? And then the other thing is, in terms of a time commitment, you want to at least set aside, you want to think, okay, I need to be, carving out 10 hours of my time within a 7-day period. And that would give you, ample time to, go through the materials, to digest it, and to, turn in the assignment at the end of each week or within that week. So it's relatively a 10-hour commitment each week, but you can, squeeze out those 10 hours in whichever way works for you, knowing that there is a hard deadline at the end of each week before you can move on to the next week.
Yeah, nothing to add to that. That's exactly the point I was going to make. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from anyone in the audience? You can add a question to the Q&A function.
I think I saw a question on the chat, but it might have already been answered. Alana says, can you enroll in this program if you are in IT/healthcare and not law? So I think we've already answered that, but just to be clear, of course you can, because there's a potential for data breach in healthcare, anywhere that data is being stored. So of course, yes.
I'd add to that. That's actually, those are the folks we're looking for. Yeah, come aboard. That's
Exactly. I don't think there are any other questions.
Yeah, so Jazz, okay, here we go. Yeah, all right. So, I will just make some concluding, remarks and then invite, the others on the presentation to make their remarks as well. I think that the questions that we've received are wonderful questions and help inform what we're going to do as we continue to design the program. And the point that Professor Biondo just made is, I think, the one, and Professor Fordson made, is the one I think is worth dwelling on, which is to say, in some ways, these are not stone templates that we're coming down from Mount Sinai with and saying, here is the curriculum. We very much want the curriculum to be tailored to what you are going to find useful. And so as you think about enrolling in this program, please continue to shoot us questions. Please continue to let us know in your personal statements and otherwise exactly the kind of objectives that you would be looking to achieve with this program. And we will make sure that you get out of it exactly what you are looking to buy when you sign up for the program. I can't emphasize enough, notwithstanding what has already been said, I can't emphasize enough how critical a sector this industry is going to be in the next 10, 15, 20 years, because not only are you dealing with all of the issues from a data management perspective that have been discussed, you're also dealing with profound shifts in the modality of the data. We are moving, for example, from a very centralized world where you have a single point of failure to a decentralized world in which, driven by things like crypto and blockchain and other things that are going to profoundly shape the ways in which we retain and have custody of data. And that has implications for individual autonomy, who owns the data. How do you make sure, for example, you've got two people trading or exchanging documents on a peer-to-peer basis? How do you make sure that as you give them more autonomy of the data, you meet the needs of the regulators from the perspective of knowing who your customer is, anti-money laundering, all other kinds of things? And so this thing is so complex and so complicated and is changing even as we speak, that people who can understand how to manage this data in an evolving world are going to be very highly sought after. And so, this is something that I hope it's obvious to you is not just something that, we are doing for the sake of it, but it is something that we are also, each of us, deeply invested and interested in. And we are providing it to you because we think, as we survey the terrain, that this could be a very fulfilling career, professionally, monetarily, otherwise, for those of you who are interested in it. So I can't say anything more than to really encourage you to take up this program. Thank you. Okay, Jasmine, I think we can wrap.
I want to thank you all for coming. I know we have some participants who are in Central Standard Time or Eastern Time, but also in West African time. So I know that it is getting late on your end. But we definitely want to thank you all for coming. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us by visiting our website at sulc.edu/data privacy. And you all have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.